PR Connections Radio presents.
Hi, welcome to Liberating Menopause. I am your host, Lisa Vasquez on prconnectionsradio.com. Today, I am speaking on women in the workplace and women in general. We are talking about giving voice to the woman who doesn't know exactly all about their change and what's really happening, because we don't have a consistent conversation that takes place on this subject. It's hard to really recognize when you're in perimenopause, right after your menstrual cycle starts to change, when you're in your 30s, 35 up to 40. Those are very big, important years. And because we're so busy during those years and we're not in tune to what is taking place in our bodies, because we have just been pioneered women and we have just walked through all this and kept pushing through. There have been a lot of subtle signs that have shown that these symptoms really take place, but because we are so reactive when symptoms do arise in us, we react and usually reach for something to change the attitude in our bodies, whether it's a headache or we need a little more sleep, different signs, there's different symptoms. And so today it's really understanding, because women don't really see us walking through these signs. We don't see this. And especially in the age of 35 to 40, as I was saying, we have a lot of energy, but then suddenly right around by 40 years old, we start to lose energy and, vitality. And we start putting that up to, it's possibly maybe age related or overstressed, fatigue, something's happening to me. My life has become a little bit more overactive in the family, home life, or at a new job, or the job has changed and more has been put on us in job changes. A lot of jobs have, instead of bringing in new people, they resort to giving more chores to the one person who's there that can have more abilities to do different transitional actions in this job position. So going through all of that can actually mask the idea that some types of symptoms hormonally are taking place. And that's what I want to describe to you today, because how can you explain what we don't know? And we haven't known this in a long time. The one big thing about women in the workplace and really all over the world is that we have been generalized in a conversation as women. And because, again, this conversation isn't open on menopause and perimenopause, these are very big new words that you're hearing a lot more because we're opening that conversation up. By opening that conversation up, we're starting to hear different conversations of issues that women are going through. But the problem with that is, even though we're listening into other women's conversations on what's happening to us, we have to get into the culture care part of this, because there's a lot to do with our culture care. We cannot be generalized all as one woman together, because there's different cultures. The African American culture has their own different symptoms that appear. And when they go into menopause, they can go into menopause around 49-year-olds, where then you have the Asian community, and there's the East and there's the South Asians, and they have two different ages that they go into menopause. Then you have the Hispanics, Latinos. They have a whole different way of going into this menopausal age and stage. And so being generalized and being all put into this one conversation as we are just women. And again, we're not really being recognized for a natural process that takes place that really complicates our lives a little bit. And so, some of those subtle changes that could take place we definitely have mental and emotional changes that take place, a lot of mood swings, a lot of different brain fogs, but we're kind of overacting it out. We're pioneering through it because this is what we know, because nobody ever stopped to say that could be a moment of brain fog. This could be something that's starting in, you could be starting that perimenopausal phase. We're not discussing it in that manner. We're just walking through it. And especially when you hit the age of 40, now a lot of things have shown up and you're still in a dismay of, because now you're 40. So you may think it's age related. You just had some great years in your 20s and your 30s, and now things have changed. And it's not about really being 40 years old. It's really about being the woman that you are. You have unique changes and processes that take place. And with this whole conversation, I'm excited to introduce. I have a guest today, and her name is Bibi McFerrin. She's joining us today to give us a little insight look of a woman in her 40s, and she is just 40 years old. When I met Bibi, I was at a beautiful networking fundraising C4S Foundation, which helps youths and supports a lot of youth growth. And this organization was really awesome. I was there, I met her, and I was talking about my podcast, and she was all excited. She wanted to join in with me. She was looking forward to knowing that, wow, really somebody's talking about this. I want to come on. I want to talk to you about this, because she had so many questions. So right now, I'd really like to introduce Bibi McFerrin. She comes from the south side of Chicago. She's a hairstylist, a jewelry designer, and I am so pleased and happy to have met her, being from the south side of Chicago myself. So, hi, baby. Welcome.
Hello,
Thank,
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
thank you, baby. So, I wanted to just talk about some of the things that when I met you, and you were pretty surprised that this conversation was even going to take place, and you wanted to talk about some of the things that are not so much that I want to get into your personal medical side of this, but I do want to see and hear some of the signs and things that suddenly hit you and you started thinking, what is that? What am I supposed to do? Where do I go from here?
Of course. Again, I'm from the south side of Chicago, born and raised. And a lot of the women that I seen growing up, they were strong women. They really didn't show too much weaknesses. So for my culture, it's kind of hard to see a pillar like a grandmother or a aunt or a mom down or sick or anything like that, because they're usually the stronger ones. So it's very hard to talk about health in our community because we're more so based on natural remedies, a lot of like old school remedies that was passed down from generations and things like that. So when it comes to like the actual professional healthcare system, a lot of the times we're often looked at that we're not that our pain tolerance is low, and that we don't not only know we understand, but also that we don't have the same type of organs as other people or something like that, to those effects or whatever. So a lot of times we don't go to the doctor because we don't get to get the proper care. So now that we have been advocating for that and doing that now, it seems that we're getting more educated on signs and symptoms of things that we didn't really actually know about, like a lot of black women go through, what do you call it, high blood pressure, and it's because of the salt intake. So we a lot of our food has a lot of salt. So the greens, the macaroni and cheese, the fried chicken, the cabbage, a lot of things that we cook with a lot of seasoning and a lot of salt. So that's something that they didn't really know about until, going to the doctor, getting their cholesterol checked, getting their high blood pressure checked, and things like that. And then on top of that, um just the overall wellness of a woman's body. Like you mentioned earlier, Lisa, I am just turning 41 April 19th. So for me, all these new bodily hormonal things like that are changing, I don't really know about, because again, the family dynamic, the women are strong, and when you want to talk about matters of the weak, or matters that so-called make you seem weak, you don't get the same responses. So it's more so of a like, well, I'll take care of it type situation. So learning more about the hormones and knowing my imbalances, knowing my balances, knowing just about estrogen and testosterone and all of that, because like I was growing hair on my face and growing hair on my like in the mustache area, and I was like, what is going on? And I never had that happen before, but I am hairy. So like knowing that I'm getting older now, and not even knowing like what foods to eat, like what foods should I eat. I can't eat like a 21-year-old no more. I got to eat more like I'm got more to live for, I guess. So it's just all those different things come to mind when, especially when your mom is gone and you don't have that mother figure to tell you what is the next stages and what's the next things that happens to your body. Also in my period, like I don't know what's going on. Like the period is like coming and going. It's like at this point I'm like, you either need to stop or you need to do what you're gonna do, like you, because you really messing with me. So all of that is just all new, and just, and plus I'm trying to wrap my head around being 40 years old and don't look it. So it's just all of that is just.
And that is the beauty about being 40 years old, and kind of that's the hidden dynamic about our bodies, is that we're feeling one way, but we do know that the body is hitting at that age. And so we know that transitional changes are taking place. And so understanding that correctly, you're right, because of the systemic racism and stress levels that African American women go through, with exactly what you said about being the strong Black women. They do not never they were never able really show that weakness, because and just like any other culture, we had to just keep pioneering through that. But you had that African Americans have that extra stress levels and different things that affect them in the workplace, in bias attitudes, just in general. Then we have the disparities, just like you said, because of the education and the healthcare system that's not always there. African Americans, they lack a lot of representations, because there's not a lot of clinical trials that have really been done. And as I was saying, because the Hispanics and the African Americans and the Asians all need to be generalized into their own group, these conversations need to be had with each other in these groups, because by doing that, coming to the table and having that conversation, everyone will have a different conversation in the African American, but you'll all have that commonality. Because everybody's body is different and unique, as you were talking about, everybody's different. And so every time that we go through these systems and fluctuations and changes, they won't be similar, but they will have a key to something that can open up and correlate with what you're going through. If we sat into a Hispanic circle with the African American, then we're all confused, because the Hispanic doesn't have the same factors that affect the African American woman. And again, going back to the Caucasian women, having so much more different education and different healthcare attention and education, it leads into a lot of changes that we have to demonstrate through and really pioneer through. So some of those subtle signs, knowing that the African American goes through menopause at least by 59, when the average age is usually around 51 or 52, means that your perimenopause takes place somewhere around between 35 to 40, because it's usually 8 to 10 years prior to that. So normally, in general, we always figure that at age 40, you're going through perimenopause, and then by 51, 52, you're going into menopause. ending the whole period. But now that we're having different studies and hearing different tracks of how women are chartering through this flow, this is why this conversation is so important to hear and share, because in the workplace, as I was saying, we're all generalized instead of separated. So depending on how much of whichever group you have, we're all being seen as, we're not even being seen as having these factors affecting us. That's the whole problem with our problem, is that by opening this conversation and talking about it, it's so important, because not having this conversation at work, women not really talking about what they're going through and discussing it, and being a little, you don't want to really be obvious, but we're hiding it so much that we actually look like we're really just making it through, and everybody's okay. And we really are not. And there's so many breakdowns at the end of during our journey. And as we come closer to these ages of 50, 51, people in workplaces can be in senior positions, and now they're really giving up and losing a lot of hope, and seeing the young come in, and now they're mentoring them, but now they're feeling like they're becoming more invisible. A lot of things change with this age group, and it's important that we note that we are not all the same. We cannot be generalized. And in different communities, we really need to be structured where we're understanding each other as a community, instead of being looked at as a whole, just one woman. And there's a lot of women that have survived this, and they're up in upper levels of the workplace, and they've made it, and they've gotten through it. And I still don't see why it's not noted to the other women, because they had the experience. And even though they've made it, and they're on the other side of this, and maybe they're feeling better, maybe they could be broken. But the point is that they're not giving any leadership to the women in the workplace to understand that we're having all these different illnesses and the effects. When you're talking about the food and the high salt intake, all these different things that have effects, I'm glad you recognize it and you notice it, because there's so much food that can be really toxic to us, and because we grew up with cultures and histories of all that good food. I mean, us in the Hispanic culture, we love fried foods, fried tortillas, deep oil, things like that. And these things, this is why we have like a lot of high cholesterol. There's a lot of Hispanic problems with diabetes, a lot of high blood pressure, because again, all those salts and everything. But when we're at the workplace, there's not a lot of nourishment. And being at the workplace 8 hours a day, we leave school, we leave the school years, and in the school years, recently food is starting to change in different states for our grade schoolers, but the food that has been there and been given to them, it's really hard to understand how they're being raised at school for 8 hours. They're eating what the school is giving them, and there was no real good values of nourishment. Now we're grown up, we're in the workplace, and we're still being treated the same way. We have the same grilled foods, we have the same uh, hot oil french fries and all these great things happening, and that's okay in small amounts. But when you're coming there as from work to come have lunch, and there's not a lot of options, those are the things you're going to eat. These are the things that are destroying us and really breaking us down, because that's 8 hours of work. We're having our breakfast there, we're eating our lunch there, and we carry that on to home. And by the time we get home, we're not really that hungry. We're tired. We're exhausted. We're coming down from the caffeine. So many changes that just what the workplace took from us. When we come home, we're not really recovering a lot, because now we have a whole nother level of stress and different things that we have to deal with the home place. So in your hairstyling, moments that you have with women and people like that, because hair loss is a big sign that women go through in perimenopause, but it's not recognized as a sign of a hormonal change. I'm thinking that maybe it's because of all the hair coloring that we do, the different hair dyes that we do, and people relate their hair loss conditions to having, you
So
know,
technically, Lisa, so technically, when you think about your hair, you think about your hair like a plant. right? So basically, when you think of it as a plant, what does a plant need? A plant needs water. So when we start talking about hair, skin, and nails, that those departments, they get nurtured from within more so than outside, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So the hair color, it plays a part, but it's not a bad thing. So what makes alopecia, or what makes hair thinning, and what makes hair loss and all that, that comes from when you get into certain ages, you start taking certain medications have certain things in them that will combat your hormones that specifically go to growing hair, skin, and nails. So a lot of women don't know because they don't look up the ingredients in their prescriptions. So half the time they're taking a prescription that is that is a that is has a, what's the word I'm looking for? The side effect is hair loss, or skin being thin, or pale, or whatever the case may be. But of course the doctor's not going to tell you that. And of course you're not going to look at that, because you're looking at what the doctor prescribed me is to help me. So half the time what I see is a lot of women, basically they're on these medications, and half the time they don't know what the medication does. And that is mostly the time where they get alopecia or their hair is thinning, and they don't know. And then that's when I, as a hairstylist or a cosmetologist, I recommend them to their dermatologist at that point, because where I can't, where my hands stop growing, whereas with the natural way, which is a hair regimen, you come in every 2 weeks, you get a proper clean, you get a proper trim every month, and you get it styled. So that is proper hair maintenance for a woman, for her to have it every, you know, the routine. So if you have something, and again, I ask women all the time when they say, "Oh, my hair is thinning," or "I see a lot of shedding," all those things, it's because you're not drinking enough water. It's not enough. It could be the medications you're on. And sometimes, if it's not the medication, it could be the shampoos and conditioners. A lot of shampoos and conditioners from off of these over the counter shelves, like Pantene, um, Vidal Sassoon, all of these, like over the counter, they are based in alcohol. That is the worst thing for our hair. So on top of the medication you're taking, not drinking water, alcohol based products, you're just is your hair doesn't get anything. It's just like, where am I getting nutrition from? The sun. And it needs the sun, but it only needs so much of that too. So it needs all of those things. Just like I said, so it goes all the way back to what I started with by saying your hair is a plant. You have to treat it as such. So you start from the inside first. You're making sure you're drinking water. You're making sure you're looking up those medications that you're on, because half the time, a lot of women are on 5 different medications, and half of those medications have side effects that are the same things. So imagine how much is, not being combated, because the side effects of all of these things, and they're taking 5 to 10 pills, and that's ridiculous. I don't think any woman at the age of 50s, 40s, and to 60 should be taking 10 pills a day. That's ridiculous. You got to figure out what's going on if at that point. But I understand things can be, detrimental and stuff like that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, if you're taking a woman one a day, if you're taking stuff for hormones, if you're taking this for this and you're taking this for that, if you got it, all of those things, it's like, what is the point? So most of the time when it comes to hair, it's the insides. If your insides are good, your hair is going to grow, and your nails are going to grow, and your skin is going to flourish. If it's not, that's the first indication that you are sick. Is That's what was taught to me as well, is that your hair and your skin and your nails tell your story. And if they're not telling the story correctly, then there's something in the inside that needs to be changed.
Yes, and as I was talking in my earlier episodes, because working in mammography for so long, I had mentioned how the earlier years in the 80s, early coming into 90s, a lot of women came in environmentally healthier. They had better hair, they had a lot more, their skin was a lot healthier, their conversations were a little more healthier, compared to as I started to see the decline. And the first signs of that decline were the signs of the loss of hair, the hair thinning,
Well, we
and
have to
women.
remember too that a lot of back then, a lot of women were housewives. They didn't have to have a job. So now the woman now is an independent woman, and she has to take on responsibilities that a man was supposed to take on. So now that she's taking on different responsibilities and having to do everything like a Wonder Woman, how do you expect someone to act, you know what I'm saying, or do? So like so of course our hair is going to be a last resort, and our nails and our skin, because we're not thinking about those things first, which we should be anyway, because we're supposed to be thinking about ourselves first anyway. First and foremost, we're not supposed to think about anybody else anyway. I am a human being, then I am a woman, then I am a child of God, then I am a mother, then I am a hairstylist, then I am. You understand? So I understand the way that the levels are, and so you just gotta be able to recognize that and understand that as a human being, living this life and figuring it out, because you're the only one on this earth, and you're figuring it out just like everybody else figuring it out. We're just
Yes.
all figuring it out in different stages.
Exactly. And because again, everybody's so unique, and the changes that occur a lot of times are secretive, because a lot of women don't really want to share. That's why they always say your hairdresser knows for sure, because
Oh
those
yes.
conversations are taken at that point. But it does have a lot to do with that nutrition, because again, I was talking, food could be toxic, but it could be medicine also. The more protein, the more food that you nourish the body with, the less it has to, the more nourishment that we put in our bodies to pay attention to all our organs, gives us the opportunity for our hair to be stronger, because the body doesn't have to leach off of anything else too. The hair is the last piece of our bodies to really be fed,
The
because
first question
organs.
I ask of course, the first question I ask a client when they say something about like if they bring up hair thinning or hair shedding or hair loss, the first thing I'm asking is how much water intake are you taking? Because technically we are supposed to drink 8 glasses a day. So if you are not drinking 8 glasses a day, and again, I'm going to always refer back to the plant. If you're not watering your plant the proper water that it's supposed to get, how do you think the leaves going to look? That is the same exact reference that I use for my clients to understand their hair. Your
So
hair is your crown.
what is their answer when you ask them that? How much water?
It's always something different. It's always, oh, well, yeah, I drink it. Oh, I do this. Listen, I always say this. It's three people you can't lie to. You can't lie to your doctor, you can't lie to your lawyer, and you can't lie to your hairdresser. So, so it's only
Oh yes,
someone,
no. On the subject of water, I always explain it, because I love drinking water. I drink a lot of water all day long. And I always ask, would you like to look like a paradise? Niagara Falls in the side, full of greenery and beauty, or not drinking water, you're going to look like a dry desert. And if you're going to be a dry
and
desert, you're going to
also
have
too,
a lot of tumbleweeds happening, and your hair will be blowing in those tumbleweeds, because of the dryness. Because as I was saying, the nutrition in the body goes straight to the organs, and if it's not enough in there, it has to leach from something before it can even go to feed the hair. It's very important for how we eat, what we nutritionalize our bodies with. And of course, water is the key component, and it's most important, especially from where you're talking about the hair being a plant. Our whole body, we are a plant. I mean, everything has a meaning
pretty
for
much.
nourishment. Everything does. It
If
has a,
you if you looked up the Bible, I mean not the Bible, but if you looked up the the seed of a plant, like just look up the seed of a plant. I read this. I mean, I saw this on one of my I looked at Pastor Michael Jr. and he had this young lady on there, and she is a biologist. So she studied the body and she's a Christian. So she compared the seed to the seed, like the seed in us, like our garden basically. So it looks, so the plant's seed in the way the plant is, it looks exactly the way our heart and our organs, it looks the same. It's the same plant, it's the same thing. So to see that, it also made me think about how good my good father is, and how he made us so intricately, and he's just such a good master at his craftsmanship. I'm just at his work, but just to see how the four valves of the heart is just like the four valves on the leaf, in the vines is like our nervous system. It's a mind-blowing thing to see once you see the comparison. And also if you follow God and you know, study him, to see how intricate he is with our insides as much as our outsides. It's an amazing thing, and it makes you want to do right by it, because he says your body is a temple. So if it's a temple, and that's what I tell my clients, your body is a temple, my darling. How does your temple look to you, and from the inside, and what do you put it in it to make it flourish and grow, and make it beautiful and harmonious for you, not for anyone else, just for you. So it's just a beautiful thing to recognize God's beauty in his divine craftsmanship on a human, of a human being, and to say that we are just like the plants is is just breathtaking.
It really, really is. I mean, when you look at the walnut, isn't it the walnut looks just like the
The
lungs?
walnut
Yeah,
looks just like the brain. That's
it's the
crazy.
brain, yeah, the brain. And then the carrots look like the eyes. I mean, all the fruits, they
Yes.
all have
All the
different
fruits, all the
recognizing.
colors are all associated to some organ. It's amazing. That's how we know that he's such a good father, and he's such a good Lord, that he gave us every single thing we need to nourish our body and to heal our body as well. We don't need these man-made things to heal our body. We need to go back to the originator, go back to the creator. Let him tell you what you need to eat, what you need to put into your body to make it back whole. That's it.
Well, and that's why he says food is medicine, and this is why it's a woman's choice, and it's the things and the roads that we take. It's the way we want to merge onto this highway once this flow begins and starts to change. It's really understanding all these different factors that take place, understanding our nourishment, and most of all, if we don't go in, we go without. So being in our spiritual form, whatever that looks like, meditating, prayer, praise, however you see it, it's so important. And for the woman in the workplace, it's so important because the choices are not always presented in a good way, but we have to do our best by making small choices that are really going to help us, nourish us. And, I really thank you, Bibi, for bringing up this conversation, being here, talking to me on this subject with women. I'm looking forward to Bibi joining us some more. She'll be coming on, and we're going to talk about uh, dad, moms. What were we talking about, Bibi? Where we're going to be talking about hair extensions
Yeah,
and different ways that women who are in cultural different relations with children can really
yeah.
understand how to
Different
take care of
textures
them.
that
Yeah,
different
yeah.
textures that moms have. Like, you know, they're used to one type of texture, but all textures have some type of universal togetherness where everybody can learn from. So, and especially moms that have babies that have extra curly textures, and textures that they might not be able to manage so easily, versus like extra curly or soft curly wavy. It's so many different ones. So it's just about educating the dads and the moms on just knowing the textures, just
Yes.
textures.
So we will be coming back with BB to bring on those conversations as we get into the hair and skin later on in the year. But this discussion today, I really appreciate for you coming on, talking to me with this, because these are the things that women, if we don't know, how can we explain this to anyone? And by knowing these subtle little signs, like I was saying, that hair loss, the mood swings, the different conversations that you have with yourself, trying to think, wow, did I really just forget that? Small little signs mean big messages. And this is when I talk about your hormones are speaking to you and we need to listen. Thank you so much for being with me today, BB. I look forward to seeing you again. And
Thank
you
you
have
so
a
much.
great day. Yes, BB, we're going to talk about this some more.
Yes.
Thank you, BB.
Yes, my Chi-Town sister. Yes.
Thank you.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.